The Elite X3 is not your typical smartphone. It is geared for business. Don't expect to see all the trendy kids to be eyeing up this device, but if productive working on the go is what you need, the X3 could well be the one. This hands-on and initial impressions come from using a pre-production model and not the final retail unit. As such, I'm unable to give a full and conclusive review given some features are not fully implemented at the time of recording. The X3 is no slouch in specifications. It is as if the team at HP went to the options list for parts and ticked them all. Yes, I mean them all. These are shown on screen now. I have a personal affiliation for smaller screen devices, but even those used to larger handsets comment on its size. That said, Galaxy Note users will likely feel relatively at home with the X3, and if you're used to the Huawei Mate 8, Nexus 6 or the Microsoft Lumia 950 XL, the size difference is minimal. Big it may be, for something that is IP and mil-spec 810G rated, you would not know it at all. It looks like any regular smartphone. I've rarely seen anything this large and protected that looks so sleek. I can confirm, after a few drops, it's still working. Primarily black in colour, the distinguishing design is the shiny plastic that is housing the speaker on the bottom of the handset. It has a stylistic finish for the speaker grille, which gives it a slightly better look. The device is of plastic construction, and it would have been nice if there were a presence of aluminium, but sadly this is not the case. Such may have affected the weight and resistance to impact. At 7.87mm thin and 190 grams, this is not a light or slim device, but it is still impressive that it should house so many features for its profile. The display is 5.96 inches with a resolution of 2560 by 1440. This is a WQHD AMOLED touchscreen with 494 pixels per inch and a brightness of 550 nits. Corning Gorilla Glass 4 is fitted to resist impact and scratches, and there is an anti-reflective coating. The bezels around the screen were a little larger than I would have liked to have seen, but I imagine this is in part has something to do with the rugged nature of the phone. Any thinner and the screen would likely become too vulnerable. Visibility was good and rarely did I feel the need for full brightness, being quite happy with 25 to 50% brightness most of the time. The reason why the X3 screen is so big is a question that likely strikes most people, and the real reason is to try and strike a balance between usability and function. If you need to work on a document and you can see a lot more on screen and do more with less scrolling, which when looking at detailed reports or many business documents can be extremely beneficial. For some general uses the screen is too big and few will be using this one-handed. Entering text with the on-screen keyboard was an absolute doddle, even with my smaller hands. The larger keys and real estate made for more accurate typing. The Elite X3 runs Windows 10. What Microsoft has done over the last couple of years is to unify phone, tablet and desktop and laptop so that they all run the same operating system and to a large extent the same universal applications. It's true that Windows 10 Mobile is lacking what some would consider essential first applications, but there are many third-party applications that could take their place. There's a lot to like though, and users already heavily engaged in Microsoft services will feel the biggest benefits. OneDrive, Skype, Outlook Calendar, OneNote, Outlook Mail and more are all pre-installed, and you can be up and running within minutes. No incompatibility with files from the company servers here. HP sees security as a big thing, and while encryption is built into the hardware and the software, HP have added in a fingerprint sensor, to date something not seen on a Windows 10 device. Sadly, this and the iris scanner were disabled on this device, but come the final unit, it should offer a very secure route to stop unwanted individuals gaining access. From reading the spec list, you will know that the X3 is not lacking in connectivity options. Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, GPS, USB Type-C, USB host, 4G and NFC. There are 2 SIM slots in the Elite X3, meaning you can have 2 SIM cards in the phone. This may be a work and personal SIM or a local and international SIM. Both are nano SIM cards, and the downside is that to take advantage of the dual SIM functionality, you do have to give up on the MicroSD card slot. If you want to use a MicroSD card in the handset, you will have to use just one SIM card. There is an optional desktop dock. Depending on where you buy the X3, it may come included. It does when purchased from Clove. It is weighty and it will not slide off a desk. Not sure it needed to be as heavy as it is. The dock does more than charge the phone. It offers an Ethernet port, a DisplayPort connection, 2 USB ports and 1 USB Type-C connection. Somewhat frustratingly, in my opinion, is that it's powered from a proprietary connector that requires a power brick setup similar to that of a laptop. It serves the purpose, but I think the addition of an HDMI port would have been beneficial to many. When connected, the phone can be used like a desktop computer with a Windows desktop-like experience thanks to Continuum. It's here where the X3 shows how it can do more than just be a phone and actually be used like a desktop PC. The Elite X3 has Bang & Olufsen stereo speakers built into the device, one speaker at the bottom and one at the top. The sound is crisp, clear and has a decent balance to it. The volume is not the loudest, but it was clear with no signs of the speakers straining or struggling to keep up with the audio I put through them. Given the size of the X3, it would be nice if the speakers were larger. The bottom speaker gives the impression of being larger than it is when it's just the same size as the one at the top. On the back of the X3 is a 16 megapixel camera and an 8 megapixel on the front. Both take pretty decent images with good clarity and balance of colours in my opinion. I quite like the more saturated look, but the X3 gives a more natural tone. There are adjustments for ISO, white balance and exposure with both front and rear cameras. 4K video recording is available on the rear camera, whilst HD recording is available on the front camera. For the typical use case scenario, the results I do believe will pass the test. A second or third LED flash on the rear would have been nice, but there are not all that many phones that offer this now. Given all the other premium parts, I'm surprised not to see such. Fixed internally is a 4150 mAh battery. That is large, very large, but then there is a lot to power. The unit on test here had a battery with a weak performance. We were advised of this prior to our hands-on, so it's not possible to make appropriate comment on this, but a day's heavy use should be perfectly possible. For those who do really demand power, the X3 boasts Quick Charge 3.0 and both Qi and PMA wireless charging. The use of the USB Type-C is both a positive and a negative. The benefit is reversible connection makes connecting a cable a lot easier. The downside is you may need to update the cables you already have to USB Type-C, as it's still relatively early days for this connection. The Elite X3 is an absolute powerhouse. I'm not going to give you some illusion that this phone will work for everyone. It won't. Windows 10 has its fans for obvious reasons. There are too those who can't get behind the OS for some apparent reasons. However, in a corporate environment where many businesses run and rely on the Microsoft infrastructure, the X3 is a solution that could work well. It's not a cheap option at £680 inclusive of VAT, but given the right investment and user training, could replace the smartphone and the laptop and become the all-in-one device. The dock brings many advantages, but it is a big and bulky thing to carry around. Whilst perfectly possible to take the kit with you, I do feel the bulk and weight is probably prohibitive, and the preference would be for a laptop in these cases. That said, the screen on the X3 is large enough that for many who do need to work on the go, they can with relative ease. You might just hold off the 5,000 word report. Just how HP have produced such a powerful smartphone that looks the way it does and manages to withstand the knocks is incredible. Dare I say this is what the Microsoft Lumia 950 XL should have been? This certainly sets a very high bar for future flagship Windows devices.